My guests for today are the founders of Dograh, Pritesh and Abhishek. Welcome to the webinar. Super excited to have you guys. Can you start by introducing yourself? Pritesh, please give us the 3 seconds pitch to Dograh.
Thanks, Mai. Thanks for having us, and thanks everyone for joining us. I think quickly about Dograh. Dograh is an open source platform. We are a voice AI builder platform. A lot of people are building out voice agents today on top of other platforms like Copy, Retail, and all of those companies actually. So we are the open source alternative to companies like that. Why we started this is that we realized that people don't want to rent infra anymore. People want to own their own infra. People want to have their own platform, be it for their own use cases or for building out for their end customers. So that's where the thought of building out an open source platform for building out voice agents came into picture. Me and Abhishek go back a long time. We're both here. I think I will hand it over to Abhishek to add on his thoughts there.
Yeah, thanks, Pritesh, and thanks, Mai, for having us here. It's our pleasure. Uh, about me, I have been a techie for most of my life, like almost over 15 years. I love building products. In my previous role, I was leading a push notification app on Shopify ecosystem, which was acquired. And after that, I took a career break, and then I started Dograh with Pritesh. Me and Pritesh, we go long back. We have been college buddies for over 20 years. We love open source, so we decided that we would be, of course, doing open source. We have been building Dograh for slightly over 9 months now. The first commit went out on Dograh in September last year. So it's been a pretty wild ride. Someone from Better Stack featured us in May, which kind of boosted our project by a lot. It gave us a very good visibility worldwide. We stand at around 5,000 GitHub stars. More than 1,100 people have forked our repository. And yeah, people are happy with what we have built, and that makes me really happy.
That's amazing. You said 5,000 stars. I think the last time we spoke, it was like at 1,000 or something. That was a few weeks ago. So that's amazing. Congrats on all of that. How are you guys handling all the like the virality and the hype? And I'm sure you're getting lots of requests. Tell us more about what type of like customers or what type of users are you seeing building on Dograh?
I think to be very honest, the kind of customers that are building on top of Dograh has been a surprise for us as well. We have seen a bunch of different kind of personas, but probably I'll put it in 3 different categories. We've still seen self-hosters, people who want to self-host or Dograh for very specific reasons because they are more technical, or because they want to own the stack from day one, stuff like that. We have seen large enterprises now building on top of Dograh, building for their own use cases. They have very high call volume, maybe around 500, 400 parallel calls at any point of time. And we have also seen probably mid-tier companies which want to build on top of Dograh self-host because of the fact that they're cost sensitive. They're already at a scale where the cost is pretty high of running it on a commercial platform, and they want to self-host so that they are able to cut down the cost to a certain bit. We have our own opinions in terms of probably who should be self-hosting, who should not be self-hosting. But yeah, these are probably broad 3 categories of people we have seen who using Dograh. And I think one of the reasons are me and Abhishek, when we started Dograh, we started as an open source platform. We did not have I was just thinking back when you mentioned that we have hit 5,000 stars. Honestly, we did not have that thought that we will hit 5,000 stars. I think our first goal was to hit 300 stars and then get to 1,000 stars. Those were our goals actually. And the reason why we started open source is that I think we were discussing it today with someone, and probably the question came up, why open source? I don't think we ever had a plan. in terms of why open source. I think the core idea was we wanted to watch some people just want to watch the world burn, right? And open source is a sort of it falls in that category where you see that, hey guys, this should be open source, right? Let's just build it out and watch a lot of closed source players burn. We probably, as a lot of builders, probably have love for open source, apart from the fact that you probably want to watch the world burn. That's a side joke, but yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think startup life is like you see the world burning. Anyway, yeah. Before we continue, I have like lots of questions, but for everyone who's listening, please, if you have any questions, feel free to post it on the Q&A or on the chat, and we will have the last 10 minutes to answer any questions. So please feel free to write everything. Let's jump in. Like I have lots of questions, but let's jump into the main topic, like why enterprises actually prefer to go self-host and on-prem. Like is it the data? Like what are the main reasons you are hearing? Pritesh, you're muted.
I could share a bunch of stories to take you through why we have seen enterprises and companies, not just enterprises, we've also seen mid-tier companies now trying to self-host. And probably the reasons remain pretty much similar to why people have been self-hosting OSs for a fairly long time. And if at all, they have been probably aggravated with the whole Gen AI boom, actually. So one of the primary reasons is actually data residency, data compliance, and PII protection. And that remains a big reason still till date. We have a company from Taiwan building on top of Dograh. They're a fairly large global enterprise. So they're building on top of Dograh. They're building voice agents on top of Dograh. They're self-hosting all of this. The reason being that they're very data sensitive. They don't want their data to leave the Taiwanese geographical cloud and all of those things, right? And also they have their own local models that they have sourced from. Some of that is built is fine-tuned on top of the data. Some of it is sorry, some of it is sourced from companies in Taiwan itself. So they want all of that in-house. They want data sovereignty. That has definitely been one big reason why. And like I said, it has only been aggravated by the whole Gen AI boom. The reason being that people are very sensitive about data now. And we have heard lines that, hey, I don't want my data to be used for training any kind of models. And I'll quote a story from today, actually. So there was this company, there's this large BPO from Australia, actually, that we were talking to today. And we were talking to the decision maker, to one of the directors of the company. And actually, one thing that is mentioned was that we said that, hey, why don't we like get started with probably this guy wants entire full-on data sovereignty. He wants everything on-prem. He wants to use his own GPUs. He wants to put models on his GPUs and all of those things. I mean, he wants to go full local, full OSS and all those things. So we thought that, hey, why don't we do a pilot on a closed source model first, and then see where it goes from there. And the reason that he said that, and probably Abhishek also might want to share, he asked that, why don't you share a script with us on what your call looks like, and we'll take a look and make some suggestions as well. He was like, I can share, yes. His answer was yes and no, which means that he can share, but he will not share. So he was very sensitive about his own internal processes, even going to ChatGPT. So he was like, I don't want my internal process, internal scripts, some of those going to an AI model. And then somebody asked that, hey, what could be the best way to reach these kind of customers? And then OpenAI says that, hey, here's something that I found from a user, and it has been working out really well. So those are some reasons why. And I could go on. There's reason around cost. There's reason around a lot of auditability and all of those things that also come into picture. But primarily, I think it's about compliance. It's about data residency. It's about PII protection. Apart from the obvious fact, which is cost. Cost starts to make a difference at scale, right? Trying to scale, the cost starts to make a difference. People want to have their own orchestrator on their own servers, as well as use their own models as well. So that's probably a large second factor, I will say.
Let's talk about the cost, because in hindsight, it sounds like self-hosting would be cheaper, but actually it comes with hidden costs. Like you need to provide all of that, not only like the servers and all of that, but like you need to build, you need to maintain, you need to host your infra, and you need to manage like all the DevOps and alerts, and you will get the call at like 2 in the morning that something is not working, and you have to manage all of that. So let's talk about this a little bit.
Abhishek, you're on mute, I think.
Yeah, sure. Mai, actually, that's a very good question because a lot of discussions around self-hosting comes around cost. So voice AI, as you know, has two components of cost. One is inferencing models cost, which typically runs on GPUs. And then there is a platform cost, which orchestrates your voice AI agent. The orchestration, by orchestration, I mean, if it's a longer call, you are planning to do like a longer call, you would typically want to break down the agent into multiple sub-agents with logic of when those sub-agents are called. That's one part of orchestration. If you have, let's say, uh, telephony, you would want your voice agent to be connected to telephony. If an enterprise already has a very traditional PBX system set up, some old system, you would want to talk to those system. If there are data sources to pull data from, there are sync to write data to when the call is over. There is a knowledge base. So this is the component of voice AI agent, which is called orchestration. And there are a lot of platforms which already do this. So there's one component of this orchestration, and then there is other component which are models. Like there are cascade-based models where there is like there is a speech to translation, then there is LLM, that is reasoning, and then there is text to speech. And in new age models also have these speech to speech, where directly speech goes in, speech goes out. A lot of labs are doing all these models like Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, including a lot of Chinese labs which are publishing all these open source, open weight models. So in voice AI, the cost primarily comes down to these two components. The platform cost comes out in the range typically in the market 1 to 5 cents, depending on where you're buying from. But the model cost is something that's more of like it's more trickier. It's more nuanced, where you would want to rent a GPU, you would want to host a model that suits your purpose well. So as an example, if your model is very simple, it does not involve any tool calling, it does not involve any knowledge base access. You can host, let's say, a 4 concurrency model on an RTX, which is around 24 gigs of VRAM. It will cost you, if I'm not wrong, around $300 a month. So that means you get like 4 concurrent agent, 5 to 10 concurrent agent running on like $300 a month. And if you also want to put the orchestrator on your self-host environment, you would typically rent like an EC2 instance for around $150 to $300 a month for similar concurrency. So to answer your question in a very simple terms, to run a voice AI agent fully on-prem with a limited concurrency of around 5, you should be able to run something on the range of $500 a month. I mean, I'm
Is
assuming
there,
like always on a kind of situation. If you're like turning off the machines, you of course like cut cost.
but let's take it from the other perspective. Like if I'm like a business owner and I'm deciding which platform or which stack should I go with, is there like a call volume or threshold, or like what's the framework how companies are deciding to go open source and self-hosting and versus like a closed platform?
So there is one thing that probably we definitely recommend thinking about, which is if you're looking at a open source platform, something that people typically discount is the whole effort that goes into DevOps, right? There's a lot of effort that has to go into DevOps, into putting things up, into keeping things up, and all of those things. And and if you're doing it for low call volume, it absolutely doesn't make sense. But we've seen people do it for low call volume as well. If your focus is speed to market, it absolutely doesn't make sense. But we have seen people do that as well. And there are multiple reasons behind why people do it even at low call volume, even if they need speed to market. I mean, the parallel comparison would be, say, in ecosystems where renting, when we're buying a house or buying a property doesn't make sense, but compared to renting, but people still buy a property, right? That's just an emotional decision, right? So that's how we have seen a lot of people still build at even low call volumes. We have seen people build despite the fact that speed to market, getting to a PMF, early builders, actually, these are small early builders, getting to PMF is more important, or being able to use that voice agent suits my use case is more important, but still people building out on their own self, using Dograh to self-host and all those things. Meanwhile, probably I'll change gears a bit and say this, that at Dograh we also have a cloud hosted solution where you don't have to self-host anything. You can come and try everything out on Dograh Cloud, and then if it makes sense, you can always make the decision to self-host at a later point. But we've still seen people self-host, right? Even at a very early stage, we don't recommend that at all. And I'll give you an example of a large restaurant chain based in Florida. They're not very large. They have 3 chains, but they're fairly popular and fairly upscale. One of the founders is actually comes from semi-technical kind of a builder kind of a background, and he decided to build everything by himself. We don't think that's the best decision to do it. We tried probably convincing him to not do it, but he's a builder. He loves doing what he's doing, and you can't. If you love something, there's no reason when you're in love, right? That's what you have seen, and it does take a bunch of effort to get things up and running, to maintain it at a certain scale, certain volume, and to a certain standard. There's a bunch of DevOps effort and cost that goes into it, right? You have to have someone accountable for the uptime. You have to have someone accountable for the latest developments that are coming in the platform, right? Otherwise, you're going to miss out on the whole voice AI wave. Voice AI is improving dramatically week on week, and not even month on month. It's improving week on week.
It's every day.
Yeah, it's improving every day, right? Sometimes if we don't follow what's happening, we feel like we're getting lost on the latest stuff that's happening in voice. And some of our users are telling us, we being open source, what happens is a lot of our users keep posting to our community, keep pushing PRs, keep asking for newer features, and we realize, hey, when did this come in? Right? The voice AI world changed so much in the last 1 week when we were probably looking at something else. So I think there are a bunch. Sorry, I've digressed a little bit, but there are a bunch of reasons where we have seen people self-host, but we believe they should not be. But self-hosting definitely makes sense when you're doing it at a certain scale. Probably when you're having around 100K, 200K calls in a month, which means that probably multiplied by 3 or 5 minutes per call, you're having 1 million calls per month. Self-hosting starts to make sense, right? Because you would want to have a lot of custom work done, because these could be spread across multiple use cases. You would want to have some custom integrations because you're already at a scale where you would have a lot of custom software. You would want to have your own, probably you have your own custom telephony integrations and all those things. You want to have your own local models, probably something that you're already using for some of your other use cases, right? Because you might have other AI agent use cases internally. So, but again, these are logical decisions that we're talking about. What I've seen is that a lot of times self-hosting versus using a cloud is not driven by sheer logic. It's also driven a lot by passion, by people trying to play around with AI agents and the modern
I can do it
world. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come into that in a minute, but like before that, I want you to walk us through like a typical deployment on Dograh. Like, let's say one of the attendees now is like an enterprise company, and they have a large call volume, like 100, 200,000 calls, let's say, per day, and they want to self-host. What's the process like? walk us through that, because I know you guys built like a visual builder. So what's the difference between that compared to something like PipeCat or LiveKit, for example, which is also open source?
So yeah, there are two questions. How is Dograh different than PipeCat and LiveKit? And second question is, how does the process of deploying in a big company looks like? So the analogy of PipeCat versus Dograh is something like LangChain versus n8n, where if you want to like have everything in code, if you are like a hardcore developer trying to for a single man, like if you want to read a lot of code and kind of like dig into like source code into your IDE, it makes sense to kind of operate on a lower level like LangChain or PipeCat. But if you want to like kind of do things from a bit of higher level, like if you have multiple people in the team where you would want to manage, where some person is managing, let's say agent, some person is managing, let's say tool calls. If you have, let's say, user access control, which typically large enterprises have, it's very easy to kind of give a role-based access control on the GUI versus in the code. So this is where you would typically use Dograh. Uh, uh, and coming back to your second question, do you have any follow-up on this? Or this makes sense?
No, that makes sense. I think, if you want to go like the drag and drop way, just use Dograh. If you want to build everything on your own and code it, you can use PipeCat or LiveKit.
I think I want to add something here, is that probably the way we look at it is that if you understand the terms linting, camel case, snake case, Python, right? That's something that you live day in, day out. I think you would want to use low code frameworks. But if you probably live more in the business use cases, you definitely want to use probably a built out with all batteries included platform like Dograh.
Perfect. Thank you.
And also Dograh not only gives that, but Dograh also gives you a full-blown stack. Like Dograh comes bundled with a database, it comes bundled with a file storage, it comes bundled with a cache. So you literally like one-click Docker command gives you a running voice agent within like 5 minutes. You connect it with your telephony and you can literally start driving value from the business in like 5 to 10 minutes. We have seen this happening in front of our eyes. With PipeCat, you at least have to go and read their example, tell the Claude that, hey, do this and that. Today, everything Claude is doing anyway. So even with Dograh, we ship MCP. So you can point your Claude to your self-hosted Dograh deployment through MCP, and the Claude should be able to do a bunch of these things. So yeah, this is another difference, that we opinionate on bunch of things and make it extremely simple for people to store transcript over network, store recording over network. You can easily configure observability tools like Tuner on Dograh. You don't have to go and fiddle with like a code base that, hey, how to import Tuner? How do I install SDK for Tuner? You literally go and drop like a box, and then you create an account on Tuner, configure the credential, and then you are set with observability. So this is what you get like with GUI, that you get a lot of done for you. Like we have done all the hard work for you. We have decided that, hey, this is where you can store the transcript and so all of these. I'll come back to the second question, which is what does the process to deployment?
Actually, let's touch base on this point because it's related to what we were discussing. Like, we are integrated with Dograh at Tuner, and it's honestly very, very easy, very simple. It's drag and drop. When I saw the demo from the team, it was like, wow, this is probably the easiest integration we have. And you guys are building like open source, and you're building the platform itself. So when people are thinking about like build versus rent or buy or use another vendor for that, how are you guys thinking about it? Like, and also what are you seeing like some of the failures on voice agents that needs actually monitoring and integrations like this?
Pritesh, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, actually, Mai. And I think a couple of things we have seen is that one major failure point that we have seen when people are, so the mix of questions. So one is around buying and renting, and what kind of failure points people see, and also in general what kind of failure points people see, right? So there are a couple of things that we have seen. One is around uh, when you have your own stack. One failure point that people often ignore is the scaling unpredictability. You need to have a decent concurrency, right, to support any use case that makes sense for self-hosting, right? Because you're investing a ton of effort in that, and you have to have a certain amount of concurrency to be able to support that. And concurrency management is still a pain. It's still a pain, and it's not a simple or a trivial solved problem. It's still non-trivial in many ways. The other thing that we have seen people probably fail a lot at is, by fail I mean there are a bunch of failure points. I just want to highlight the failure points that people often underestimate. The other failure point that people we've seen underestimate is building out the agent. And now building out an agent in itself is massively non-trivial, and I'm pretty sure you guys at Tuner also must have absorbed this, right? And that building out a voice agent, you build out a voice agent and you think that, hey, I've done 2 days of work on this agent, is ready to go live in production, it could talk to actual humans. And then you put it to, probably you're demoing it and it works fine, and then you put it to live humans, and then what happens is that somebody's driving probably driving in traffic and calling your voice agent, and they're like continuously, they're in a hurry. Or probably you're hearing the children from the back seat speaking over them over on the phone, and they're probably talking to the children, talking to their wife and whatever, right? The bunch of conversations happening, right? And your voice agent doesn't know who to listen to, right? Because you forgot to think about diarization, or we probably just forgot to handle such scenarios, right? You have a I could go on and on. There are a bunch of scenarios that you could forget. You have an old person who speaks slowly, and they're going like this. Okay, I want to report fraudulent and then what happens is the bot assumes that the user stops speaking, and then starts to speak over them, right? I want to report. What do you want to report, right? And so there are a bunch of scenarios that, and I've not even covered probably 0.1%.
I can write a book about this.
Yeah. And that's where probably, and not even 0.1%. It's very difficult to for even the business owner who's building a voice agent for themselves to think of at any point of time all these scenarios. And we have broken it down in multiple ways for our own thinking, but probably a story for later. But and that's where probably not just the skill of building out a voice agent, which in itself is a massive skill and very, I will say, very underserved skill in the whole probably FD ecosystem, for a deployed engineering ecosystem. That's an underserved skill, definitely. But also the skill of being able to observe your calls, and something where probably Tuner comes in. You can talk a little bit more about it. Being able to observe your calls and being able to tweak and make changes to your bots. That's often understated. That's the amount of effort required to do it is often understated. What have been your findings, Mai? I'm pretty sure you guys see this way more often than us in terms of probably what's breaking, and probably a lot of funny stories also. I'm pretty sure you got.
So many. One thing I find, actually two things. One thing I find a lot of people are missing is actually the hard work starts after you go live. It's not before you go live. You feel like we have developed, we put everything we know into building this voice agent, and now we go live and just like voila, the project is done. But actually, it's not. Once you go live, people will surprise you. Users will talk in different ways that you haven't seen. I had a conversation with someone building a voice agent for real estate. And they basically for listing, like if you want to ask the agent, like I want a 3-bedroom apartment in like Southwest London or something like that, and start giving you all the options. Actually, once they went live, users are not asking about this. They are asking like, where is this a safe area? Is this the best neighborhood for schools, or is this a family friendly? Which the agent doesn't have the answers to it because it's not in the context. Like they build it with this mentality, so they know they have these different intent and these different scenarios, and this is what we built for. And these are not spam as well. Like the users, if they are talking to a human, they will probably ask the same questions, but the agent doesn't know how to answer them, so it makes up an answer. And this is the root cause of like lots of hallucination we are seeing. Like every time it will give you a different answer. Is this like is that council taxes higher in this area, or how much is it, and things like that. So following like the conversation design and building the different intents is one thing. Tool calling is also a source of a headache because the agent can hear a different thing. You can ask it to book you a table for 2 at 7 p.m. and it can easily swap the numbers, or the tool returns this day is not available, suggest another day, but the agent just ignore the answer and give you a very confident confirmation that everything is booked for that day, but it's not on the system. So everyone's frustrated when you figure it out. So there's lots of things, but I think the actual work actually starts after you go live. So yeah, lots of things. And I think with enterprise, like let's bring it back to the topic, like with enterprise, I think these different scenarios or different like failure points become more critical and critical with the different use cases.
Yeah. And I think there are a bunch of others. These are definitely critical, and there are a bunch of probably just to add it to your point. I think what you've seen is that in voice agents, the failure points are way too many compared to say normal AI agents. And to just give you a pipeline of a simple voice agent, you're actually, so when you're testing out the bot, probably you're testing out on a 32 hertz frequency on your system or whatever system you have, right? And what happens is that when the voice call moves to a telephony, that's a very small sample rate, that's around 8 kilohertz, right? And then what happens is that the ASR, the STT, which means the transcription starts to fail, right? Transcription typically has a very poor accuracy, still has a very poor accuracy, given the fact that you're talking over phone, that's very low quality audio, and then probably people have traffic in their background, people have a lot of stuff in their background, right? So there are a bunch of errors there. So probably even if you have to put transcription accuracy at around 75-80%, then you come to probably the LLM, and you mentioned tool call accuracy and all of those things, right? The LLM accuracy is at best probably 90%, because LLMs are simply indeterministic, right? And then comes the speech part, right? If you have a cascade pipeline, if you have a S2S pipeline, speech to speech pipeline, it still looks the same. But then it comes to probably the speech part, where even probably the emotions might be lacking in certain probably speech generations, right? So again, an accuracy of probably 90%. If you multiply these accuracies 80% into 90% into 90%, you realize that suddenly you are at what, 63% accuracy in one single turn. So the probability of the agent going wrong in each turn is around 37%, 38%. And in fact, in real world, it might still be even higher. And imagine a 10-turn conversation, probably a 2-minute conversation or a 3-minute conversation would have a minimum of 10 turns. So basically, you're looking at 0.63 to the power of 10. That's the probability of the agent not going wrong in a single call, which probably brings you down to a single-digit probability, right? Single-digit % probability. That's a massive hurdle. People often ignore how tough it is to build out a voice agent. And I'm pretty sure you guys have been doing great work with a lot of companies on that. But coming back to the topic that we were discussing around, which is around enterprises and enterprises self-hosting. I think we have seen companies, some successful self-hosting use cases as well. We have seen mid-tier BPO self-host, and there are a bunch of, when it comes to enterprises self-hosting, there are a bunch of considerations that go into picture. I'll give an example. So we're talking to this mid-tier BPO that I was just talking about. They're also based out of US, and they do a lot of, they're in the health domain. So and the health and the insurance domain. So they do they have very high concurrency, and they do a lot of parallel dialing because of that. And what is happening is that they have their own GPU setup that they wanted to host models on, right? And but this we recommended in that why self-host models, that because that's just, it won't probably make economic sense for your scale at a mid-tier, right? So we probably suggested, let's say, host Dograh on your systems. And what we could do is that we could have use commercial models. Now, talking about commercial models, now there are a couple of ways to use commercial models, because now in health tech, what happens is that your data and compliance becomes a big game, right? You don't want your someone sharing their probably their blood reports and all of those data leaking to talking to a bot, and that data getting leaked to probably a model provider or whatever, right? So the way to do it is we've figured out a couple of ways to do it, and we've seen enterprises do both. One is you could air gap it entirely. You could air gap, and most of these modern cloud providers, they provide 100% pure air gapping solutions. Abhishek would want to talk a little bit more about it. Or you could have these models on these cloud providers, and almost all standard cloud providers provide this. You could have these models within a data boundary, within a VPC perimeter, so that the data that goes to these models, that doesn't ever leave the data boundary or data perimeter, right? And that's a very good way for probably enterprises to be compliant, as well as ensuring that they're sensitive. And compliance doesn't just
middle
mean,
ground.
Yeah, it's a very good middle ground. And I think Abhishek can talk a little bit more about the technical nuances and the cost involved there. Yeah.
Yeah, Abhishek, please go ahead. And also let's go back to the question, like, what's a typical implementation for Dograh?
Yeah, I would want to keep this short because I think there are a bunch of questions which we would want to cover.
Yes.
So in terms of implementation, we typically start with analysis, like do they own these physical servers on a rack in their basement, or are they on the cloud? And do they want, let's say, these, like Pritesh said, this data perimeter, which puts them into compliance, which still makes them compliant within data residency regulations, whether they are okay with that, or they want fully air gap, or they want on GPUs, which is again sitting in their basement. So there's like a lot of permutations and combinations which we try to understand from these companies, or what they want to do. And based on that, we recommend solutions. So as an example, if let's say call is very simple, where you are doing like pre-qualifying 2 or 3 questions that doesn't require any fancy tool call, any fancy documentation. It's just simple guardrail and 3 call and then human transfer. You can probably run it on like a Qwen 8B because it does not need any tool calling. It can run easily on a RTX 4060 or similar graphics processor. We have seen companies rent GPUs and then run these models on those. But if you have like a really complicated voice agent, where you are doing like around 5-minute to 7-minute call, appointment scheduling, checking whether it's available or not, you would want very high reliability from the model, that it does not it looks at all the tool call responses properly, and then it does not hallucinate any random tool which does not exist. So we would recommend that, hey, let's try to start with cloud providers with data perimeter boundary model. And then as this ecosystem matures, because this ecosystem is also maturing very fast, so we always kind of have an option that, hey, we can always like move from here to your fully air gapped solution. Yeah.
Nice. That's interesting. Okay, let's go to the questions. I see some interesting questions over here. The first one is, how do you compare to Vapi? How do you compare with Vapi and Retail? That's a good question.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, and probably the answer to that question is we try not to compare to anyone first. But having said that, I think uh, uh, I want to probably highlight this fact that it is very difficult to differentiate one product from another today, given the fact that the pace of development is has probably changed compared to what it was, say, around 3 or 4 years back, right? And so the way, but still, I'll come and probably talk a little bit about what we do. So we are an open source platform. So what it does is that, and we have a cloud offering. So what it does is that it allows people to get started with our cloud offering, build out voice agents on top of that, and with the optionality that they can move everything on-prem or probably to the self-hosted setup when they want to. And the platform is very similar to what, in terms of offering, very similar to what Vapi and Retail have to offer today. But we are fairly opinionated. Since we get a lot of feedback from the open source community, which probably a bunch of other platforms don't, closed platforms don't typically. So we build fast. We are able to opinionate ourselves towards builders, towards probably dev first, tech first audience. And we are opinionated in those ways. We have probably QA tooling, we have got observability, tuner, and we have got a bunch of tooling built into the platform compared to, say, other platforms. But having said that, we already discussed, compared to, say, Pipecut or LiveKit, we already discussed differences. They are more low-code frameworks, and we are more of a batteries included workflow builder. But I want to point this out here that we have absolute deep respect for all of these products. Each and every product that we talked about, regardless of how we differentiate, regardless of whether we want to watch the world burn or not, all of these are amazing products. Amazing. I've tried out Vapi myself. So I've tried out Retail myself. We have a fork of Pipekit within Dograh as well. We have tried out LiveKit ourselves. We're not very blown out by LiveKit, unfortunately. I don't know why, but all of these products have actually blown us out at some point or the other. And we've tried out Tuner, and probably I can't understate how blown out we are with Tuner as well, and the kind of stuff that you make obvious with your product. So I think one thing that we realized, the voice AI system ecosystem maturing really fast. Some really good products are coming out in this ecosystem, and that is also reflecting in the adoption. If you look at the adoption, the speed of adoption for voice agents in the world today, and the speed at which the market is growing, it's unparalleled. We've rarely seen any other AI agent ecosystem grow this fast.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How exactly monitoring works? We tried out Vapi, which took a lot of cost, and how much it differentiate. Okay, let's take bit by bit how exactly monitoring works. This is probably a question for me, but if you want to answer, you can go first.
No, I think you should take this.
Okay. So a tuner is basically a layer that works with any of these providers that we mentioned. We already integrate with Pipecat, LiveKit, Dograh, Retail, and Vapi, and we're building a layer on the top where you can monitor every call, build evals, set up alerts. So whenever something goes wrong, you will get an alert immediately, either by email or webhook, or you can add Slack notifications and everything. And basically, whenever something goes wrong on your agent, and then we look at the call traces and all the logs, and we make it easier for you to understand what's happening. Like if there's a latency or a lag in some turns, why it's happening, how it's happening, and how can you fix it. So there's lots of things that we do when it comes to monitoring, and also easier dashboards where you can see like an iBird view on what's happening, if there's any changes that happen, and you can switch between vendors or models and compare the performance or the quality of the agent over time. So there's lots of things that you can see. In terms of cost, I would actually invite you to try Tuner. We are very generous with that, and yeah, we're aware of where voice AI right now with all the costs, and we're betting on the volume. Yeah. Next one, don't you think it's more than just a platform model cost? Builder would have to set up some human resources to build and maintain and improve the whole thing, plus the time value of money and the effort that goes into it. How do builders using your platform think about all of that? That's a good question.
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah. So, Nidhesh, you are right, Nidhesh, in saying that it's more than just platform cost. We have tried to create the platform, especially the platform that we distribute as our part of OSS, to really get started really fast. I'm not sure if you have tried setting up Dograh on one of the EC2 instances, but it's really fast to get started. And we provide MCPs to even your self-hosted instance, not only cloud instance. You can point your Claude or Codex or any coding open code to the instance that you have self-hosted, and you can try building an agent, changing an agent. Uh, so you're right that it does include some human cost, but we have tried, and that's something that we always keep on striving more and more, that we make it easier for people to be able to play with it. We are ourselves open source enthusiasts. We have learned most of the coding paradigms not from colleges, but from the choices that the giants before us have come and taken. So we try to make it a lot easier for anybody to kind of host and maintain the stack. Pritesh, you can add anything if you want.
I think fairly well covered by Abhishek. And in parallel, what we also have is we also have a cloud hosted offering, and which probably anybody can try who doesn't want to manage all of this. And honestly, I think I want to probably add this, that probably something that I spoke about earlier is that self-hosting is also not just a commercial decision for a lot of people, but is also probably an emotional decision for a lot of people. A lot of people are simply passionate about OSS and passionate about self-hosting, and passionate about being able to touch platforms and touch and feel platforms. That's one reason also why we've seen people use self-hosting, despite the fact that we recommend that, hey guys, you don't need a self-host at this stage. Go ahead with the cloud offering that you have, and then move to self-hosting later on. Yeah.
Okay, next question is, how do you handle hallucination mitigation in a fully air-gapped environment?
I don't think we fully understand this question, Abhishek. You might want to handle
Yeah,
this.
I think what the question means to ask is when they are using, let's say, a smaller model, like on a GPU, like a Coin or probably Llama, how do we make sure that the model is not hallucinating? I'll make this assumption that this question is about that. So that's like the scaling law. Unfortunately, the more number of parameters the model has, the better it is able to avoid the hallucination. So this is one of the reasons that we recommend people to get started with like simpler options, like data perimeter in their cloud of their choice, to kind of go for larger models like off the shelf Gemini models, or Anthropic models, which is very hard to orchestrate on your local GPU, because you would need like the KV cache takes a lot of memory. The model weights itself take a lot of memories. You would have to figure out what floating point precision. There's like just so much uh, decisions to factor to host models on your GPUs, uh, that we do not recommend creating anything complicated on self-hosted GPUs to avoid hallucination.
Okay. Given complexity of cost, how to come down to per minute cost if you are going hybrid mode, self-hosting the orchestration, but using third-party inference for STT, LLM, TTS. So it's basically on the coast, like how do you see like the hybrid model, like using, let's say, DeepGram, SpeechMatics, 11 Labs models, but using the self-hosting orchestration.
Okay, so as I said at the start of the webinar, that there are two aspects of cost. So if you're self-hosting the orchestrator, you don't pay for the orchestrator. You just pay for the infrastructure that you're hosting the orchestrator on. So as an example, if you rent, let's say, a T3 4x large, if my memory serves me well, it's around $150 a month, US dollar, and that gives you 4 vCPU and 8 gigs of RAM. So that will give you like you can easily run like a Dograh orchestrator on top of that with 4 concurrency. So that's always on 4 models running for $150 a month. But if you and so if we do some back of the envelope calculation, so that if you are running on platform Dograh gives you uh, 15,000 minutes. So it will only make sense to rent that EC2 machine if you have more than 15,000 minutes in a month. So this is how I would say that you kind of like break down the cost. As Pritesh keeps saying that it's not sometimes like a logical decision, it's also emotional. So unless like you feel really passionate about hacking around, changing code, and then plugging in things, you can always use the cloud, which is like super cheap. We give like 1 cent a minute for the orchestrator, and all the model cost is like pass through. So you pay the model provider. If you want to use Dograh models, that's also available, but that's not the question, so I will skip that.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we have 7 more questions and 5 minutes left. So let's try to beat that. How do you compare speech-to-speech route versus full cascade? When should we go for speech-to-speech versus cascade? That's the question of the hour.
Yeah. I think I'll take this one. At this point, what we have seen is that speech-to-speech models, they make a lot of mistakes every now and then, especially with tool calling and all of those things. But if you're building for a use case that is more that has probably a lot of multilingual content, where probably the user is talking, user could switch languages probably, or the user could be speaking a bunch of languages that probably a speech-to-speech model supports. I think speech-to-speech does a really good job there, because speech-to-speech models, some of them, these models by, for example, Gemini 3.1 Flash Live, it can probably converse in good 70 odd languages interchangeably. We also recommend speech-to-speech models if you are building anything for the future, I believe. Let's just put it that way, because speech-to-speech, we truly believe, is the way the future will be. And speech-to-speech wins on a lot of angles, actually. Not just probably that it seems more futuristic, and that is where the world is headed. That's one part of it. Also, because of the fact that the way speech-to-speech works is that it's actually taking in audio waves, and it's actually giving out audio waves from the neural network, right? So it's what's happening is that the latency is very low. So that's where we recommend speech-to-speech. But if you have a very nuanced use case, if let's say something like an outbound use case where you want to have much more control, I don't think speech-to-speech is suited for something like that. You have to go for cascade in that scenario.
Yeah. How does Dograh control VAD and turn detection?
Yeah, I mean, Dograh has a very similar mechanism as PipeCat or LiveKit, or even VAPI. So we have these Celero also, but some of the smarter models like Flux from DeepGram or Nova 3 from Cartesia, or even like these speech-to-speech models, they actually send turn completion and turn start events, which makes it really easy to do some sort of preliminary noise cancellation also on their end. So we recommend people to use different models based. So let's say there's an example. So let's say if you, it's also use case specific. So if your use case is somewhere where the user is just saying yes, no, a very simple answers of your question. So you would want to have like a transcription based. That as soon as you hear some transcript, you are like, okay, I interrupt. But if let's say you are calling some old people where the people speak slowly, you would typically want to uh, have a turn completion which has some buffer before like it completes the turn. So it also, we recommend different strategies based on different use cases, and there are a lot of options available.
Okay. How do you, sorry, I got lost between the questions. What are the approaches you are currently using to fix the post-going live problems?
I think probably what they're talking about is about the fact that about building voice agents and then probably iterating on top of it. I think we discussed in detail about it. It's mostly about being able to observe your issues and making tweaks to the prompt accordingly. But I want to bring in a larger picture here, which is what I've been observing with the whole AI ecosystem and not just voice AI, is that the ecosystem is moving towards not just a product. A product is no more an endpoint, no more an end goal, but also services. Basically, people are looking for a certain problem to be solved. That hey, I want this voice agent to solve my legal intake, for example, and I want it to be able to qualify the customer, put their data into CRM and all those things. I think that is, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because it clearly hints towards the understanding that people have to understand now that voice agent build is no more a product problem, is also a services problem, and that is happening to the entire Gen AI ecosystem. Every product in Gen AI has are typically companies are coming up with FD roles for deployed engineers who typically go in and sit with these end customers, figure out what their challenges are and solve for those challenges, iterate on top of their voice agents that they've built for these companies, for their end customers, and keep iterating. They look at they observe what is going on, and then they keep on iterating. So it's a mix of product and services and just a lot of effort and brainstorming, I'll say. That is a way to look at it.
Okay, we're already over time, so let's be quick in these next 4 questions. How do you manage scaling in the concurrency after going live in on-prem? So scaling concurrency.
Yeah, the orchestrator can very easily horizontally scale. Like you would put like a load balancer, and then you would route calls based on WebSocket, depending on your telephony infrastructure, actually. So orchestrator is very easy to scale. The main trick and the new things are scaling the models, like the inference models, LLMs. And we also have right toolings in place that we are able to have right concurrency control. We are able to manage the context better, able to to kind of like manage the internal implementation of the memory sharing better. So it's all about like setting up the right toolings to scale. It's a in bottom line, it's engineering problem. So this is how we solve it. We do good engineering. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry, I
that's a
don't
good
have
answer.
better answer. It's a long answer. So
So basically, what you're saying is it's solvable. You just need like a good infra and good DevOps engineering, and basically you can scale. Okay.
Exactly, that's what it is.
Okay. Next one, we got a notice from OpenAI that real-time models are deprecating. So what is your thoughts on that? Is real-time models a future of voice AI? If yes, then why are those deprecating?
I think, as far as I'm aware, they're only deprecating their old model, which was the real-time 1 model. And they've released a new model, real-time 2, around, I think, a month back or so. Yeah, maybe a few weeks. I don't know. I mean, in AI today, a few days are feel like a few months now. So they're updated their model, and it's a massive change over the previous model. I would say that is the reason why.
Yeah, and also the competition is very high. Like XAI and the Gemini models are really great as well. Yeah. Okay, next one. Can the system execute enterprise workflows, or is it only limited to answering questions?
I think that's again, I think that brings us to the same problem, which is what I was talking about earlier, which is people have to start looking at deployments and solutions as product plus services rather than product alone, right? And that is where the AI world is headed. Can you execute enterprise workflows? Yes, you can. You might have to bring in a lot of your expertise in terms of thinking around probably problems, and people are saying that probably AI can write a lot of code, but AI can't do problem solving. AI still can't come up with solutions, right? So there are a bunch of enterprise workflows that you can execute with voice agents and voice agent calling your endpoints that deliver some results. Then voice agent calling your CRM, and CRM scheduling probably a follow-up call based on whatever the conversation was, and all those things. So you can actually execute a lot of workflows. And if not, if you need probably a different AI agent to handle a very complex workflow, you can always plug in n8n with the voice agent, and the voice agent can call the n8n workflow, wait for that workflow to execute, meanwhile speak a message to the user that, hey, hold on, let me check for your order status or whatever. Let me check if I can connect with the vendor about the order and get a response from the vendor, and then probably execute a workflow in the background, which is a very complex workflow, and then come back and answer and handle probably the response from that particular workflow. Again, it boils down to probably thinking about a product plus a services approach to handle a solution. Yeah.
How do we handle noise cancellation, especially in the on-prem solution? I think the same way.
Yeah, I think noise cancellation is probably you've got the same solutions available on-prem that you have available probably for a closed platform. You can try out Crisp, for example. But also what's happening is that a lot of transcription models, be it say Cartesian launched into recently, and Deepgram's own Flux model, latest Flux model, they have got noise cancellation built into the transcription model itself. So the answer to that question, I will say, will change from what it was probably 3 months back to what it is today to what it will be 3 months down the line. If you're building for something 3 months down the line, I believe you should wait. And the transcription models in itself are giving out noise cancellation. We have our own noise cancellation mechanisms built into some partial noise cancellation that we do with Dograh itself, and then STT models. And then if everything else fails, probably you can try out something like a Crisp as part of the pipeline.
Thank you so much.